Hello, good afternoon, welcome to Expo Day 4. I'm still alive and I'm very grateful for that, and thank you all for coming. I'm grateful for that too. We've got what promises to be a very interesting session next. Julie from Ouya is going to take you through a bit of the vision behind the console, and we've also got some surprise guest developers to take you through an all-new game. So without further ado, I shall hand it over to Julie from Ouya. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. Hey, thanks for coming up today. I appreciate it. As Martin said, my name is Julie Uhrman. I am the CEO and founder of Ouya. For those of you not familiar, Ouya is a new game console for the television. It was really built to be open for developers and, most importantly, accessible and affordable to all gamers. Ouyas can be purchased for less than 99 quid, to use your language. And all of the games are free to try because we really want gamers to experience content from all different types of developers and really love the game before they even decide if they want to purchase it. So we built Ouya for you, the developer. So if you ever had an idea to build a game for the television, day one, your first game out the gate, you now can do that, really for the first time. We believe there is something magical about the television. It always has been and remains sort of the most alluring device. It's what sucks you in. It's what can astound you or sometimes even terrify you. And there is nothing better than experiencing a game, watching it unfold on the television with your HD graphics and your earth-shattering sound, and holding a controller that really has precise and accurate responses. That's what we wanted to bring, we say bring back to the television, and it's funny being at a conference like this and watching some of the demos for next year. There are great games on the television. But if you're downstairs and you go to the Indiecade Arcade, there are a lot of great games from people that you may never have heard of, whose games really should be experienced on the television. So what we wanted to do was really open up the television and allow creators the freedom to build what they wanted to build for the platform they wanted to build it on. So if you're a new developer or an experienced developer, you have a large team or small team, tons of money or no money, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's what's brilliant here about Ouya, is that anybody can develop for Ouya. Our ODK is free. It doesn't cost any money to download it. Every single Ouya in of itself is a dev console. So for 99 quid, you get a game console that you can not only play games on, but you can also develop games on, again, for the first time. In order to support developers, we have put together a ton of tools. We have a great team. We get behind you from a marketing perspective and even a game development perspective, and supporting you with game development funds sometimes. And that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit to you today. Today, Ouya is built on the Tegra 3. It's a quad-core A9 chip. We support over 7 engines today, and we're adding more all the time. We have documentation and plugins. We have a dedicated member of our team, T. Grontman at Ouya.tv, that literally works one-on-one with developers. He does Skype sessions and videos. He wants to make sure that you get everything out of your game, and then at the end of the day, your game is really optimized for the television, and it's optimized for the controller. We also have an amazing developer relations team. It's led by Kelly Santiago, who is a co-president and founder of that game company who make games like Journey and Flow. She manages this team and works with Bob. So Bob is our games guy. He has a channel on Ouya where he finds some of the great content and exposes it to our audience. He also works directly with developers to help find games and bring them to Ouya. So again, if you were downstairs, he was probably down there playing your game yesterday. We also have a really vibrant community of developers. So if you go to devs.ouya.tv, you'll be able to gauge with other developers as well as our team in learning about developing for Ouya. You'll be able to download the ODK, get documentation, and that's exactly where you'll upload games and upload products for those games. Because Ouya is free to try, we really give you the freedom to build the game that you want to build. So whether you want to offer a demo or a locked trial and then you have to download the balance of the game, whether it's a microtransactionally based game, a subscription game, some of our games are actually entirely free and others are actually donation-based. So if you love the game, you can donate to the developer. But really, you can build the game you want to build. And more importantly, you can build a game, get feedback from your audience, and continue to adjust and iterate it and make it better and change it as you go, because it doesn't cost you anything to add, to keep updating your product. The other thing that's unique about Ouya is we want your game live as quickly as you want your game live. So we've made sure that the review process doesn't take very long. Sometimes it's 24, maybe 48 hours, but we review your game and get it live as soon as possible. We have light content review guidelines. The reason we have these is because we want to make sure that they gamers. We want to make sure that they're optimized for the television. We want to make sure they're leveraging the controller in the right way, utilizing our Ouya action buttons, and then just, in general, are fun to play. We understand probably more than anybody that content sells a box, and that means we need you. And we want you to be known. We want you to be successful. We don't want games to come from big publishers. We want them to come from Gaz and Harry from Feiju, right? Or Matt Thorson, who brought Towerfall to Ouya for the first time, who found his audience on Ouya and now is taking it to other platforms, where I'm sure he'll be incredibly successful. That's what I think makes it different for us. We don't want to lock you into a single platform. We really believe in being open and allow you to engage with your audience wherever they are. So we do a lot to help market and promote your games, from working with you on developer diaries that we push out through our social channels. We do one-on-one talks with Kelly and developers. Bob does a weekly show of what he loves on Ouya and is playing. We have a newsletter. We do the Twitter, Facebook thing. And then we also have a lot of promotions on the console. So we have, our top-line marquee. We have featured channels. So we really make sure that you get an opportunity to be seen by our audience. The other thing that's really nice about Ouya is we're only a little over a year old. We launched on Kickstarter last July. The product went live in retail this past June. So we don't have hundreds of thousands of games. Having said that, we have 450 games right now, which is still a lot, but it's great for developers because it gives you early access to a vibrant community of people that want to try games from new independent game developers, and it allows you to be seen because you're not competing with hundreds of thousands of developers. We work incredibly closely with the press to let them know when games are going to be launched, when they're live, so that you can get your games reviewed and get stories made about them. So there's a lot we do sort of from the marketing standpoint. And then the other thing that we do, which I talked about, was we help fund games. We have over 24,000 developers today, some of which we work with financially to help bring their content to Ouya. And we do this in two different ways today. First is the traditional way, which is we work one-on-one with developers, get excited about their games, help them bring their content to Ouya. Then you can just contact Bob at ouya.tv. The other thing that we do is we launched something called the Free the Games Fund. So if you've been following Ouya, you are probably well-versed in what the Free the Games Fund is. But really what we wanted to do was leverage the community to find great games from Ouya. We didn't want to be the gatekeepers that said, only these games should be on Ouya because we think they're great. We wanted the community to play a role in the same way that we exist today because the community wanted us to be here. So we launched a campaign called the Free the Games Fund. It's $1 million fund to last up to a year, where if you put a project up on Kickstarter with a minimum goal of $10,000 and your goal is met or exceeded, we'll match the amount of money you raise up to $250,000. So you can make the game bigger, you can bring more content, you can use it for another game. It's really up to you. And the reason we chose this path is because then you have a community of gamers that are also in love with your game and want your game to exist and want it to exist on Ouya. So we wanted to help support you in doing that. So that's live today on Kickstarter. As soon as you put up a project for Ouya, we find out, and obviously we help market it and promote it, and are excited to see your community rally behind it. If you've been following it, there's one game in its last 24 hours right now called Never Ending Nightmares. I think they need a couple $1,000s to finish. Looks amazing. We're super excited about it. So maybe when you're done, you'll donate to Matt Gilbach's game, Never Ending Nightmares. So for us to be successful, we need you guys, the developers. We don't have 1 million units in the marketplace, but we're certainly well on our way, and we're thrilled. We are selling Ouyas, online and physical in the US, Canada, and the UK, and I'm happy to announce that next month we're growing our distribution to Western Europe. And what that means for gamers is we're enhancing the product. So we're localizing Ouya into French, Spanish, Italian, and German. We're adding pound support and euro support so that gamers will have a great experience and that your games can be enjoyed by anyone everywhere. So that's sort of my big sort of highlight about what Ouya is. It's not easy to disrupt an industry that hasn't changed for over 30 years, where the rules have always been you have to be a publisher or developer that has units on the shelf or excellent relationships with the dev relations teams at a big company to see your game on the TV. We wanted to break all that down. So for us to be successful, we need your support, and we're totally here to help you bring your games to Ouya. Again, we're less than 3 months live with over 450 games and 24,000 developers, so we think it's a great start, but it only gets better if you guys support it and want to bring your great content to Ouya. Speaking of great content, I am super excited to have some good, close friends of Ouya, Gaz and Harry, the team from Feiju that brought us Amazing Frog. I brought them here because they have an amazing story as developers, which I think a lot of you can relate to. And moreover, I love the idea of a game that is so successful in Ouya, which some say doesn't even have a point. And I think that's one thing that differentiates Ouya, which is Ouya is for any type of developer. You decide what's important. At the end of the day, games just have to be fun. No one should be out there telling you that it needs to have a purpose or a beginning, middle, or end, or it has to have 30 hours of gameplay. It just has to be fun. And this is one of the examples of the games that's incredibly fun on our platform. They're in the process of developing a new game that they're going to show for the first time live here today. So I'm done. I'm going to leave it to Gaz.
Cool.
I'm going to walk this way.
Hey. So we're running. This is Harry. I'm Gaz. We're Feiju, and we've been an independent studio for about 2 years. But before that, I'd been developing games or trying to develop games for maybe about 15 years. 15 years ago, came out to what I would describe as far as indie games goes, as a kind of barren kind of landscape. Ended up funneling myself into working for other people for quite a long time. About 5 years ago, I met Harry, and we sort of formed quite a good development team together. And we spent a while working on these crazy ideas, but when we were working for other people, nobody would really take them that seriously. One of which is Amazing Frog, which the game with no point. So Amazing Frog is set in Swindon, which is where we work. I'm from Swindon, and we basically recreated the office outside. We created the space outside our office as a game environment. And the game is based around this ragdoll frog, which is he's kind of like a failed superhero. That's the kind of like vibe that we're going for. He's like a failed superhero, but he's just kind of pathetic, really. So it's like a ragdoll physics sandbox game with some flatulence thrown in there. So what happens when you play the game is that we've had a lot of people we've had a lot of people make videos of the game, put them on YouTube. There's been some funny videos out there. There's been some criticism. We've seen quite a lot of positive and negative attention, and I guess that it's kind of a bit of a Marmite game in that sense. But you know how like when you're playing a game and you run at a wall and you just sort of stand there and run into it. In Amazing Frog, he's going down every time, or he can just get taken out by anything. And if there is any kind of aim to the game, it's to just fool around and in the environment, again, which is our space. We walk past this every day. And what's been great about being on Ouya is that we've managed to get quite a lot of attention from being on a launch title, and a lot of people have been A lot of people have been making these YouTube videos and put it out there, and we get a lot of feedback from what it is they're doing. And because we're just a small team, 2 people, we can be incredibly flexible. So we have we decide one day we're going to make explosive barrels, or we're going to put a toilet in there in which you can get dressed. And we went to Los Angeles to the Ouya Park, and it was like for us, it was like a really positive experience to be part of something like that. And that's when we met Bob. So we can just go ahead and just recreate something like that and put it into the car park. Or we can, just move things around at will, and we can then do an update. And this version here is the one that's going to be the third update onto Ouya. We're planning on to just keep updating as much as we can, adding more things in. We want him to be able to drive the cars. We want him to be able to ride mopeds and go on skateboards. And Harry's basically trying to attempt to get in our office. And actually, that's actually, I'm not going to say anything here. Get in there. Skills.
Nice.
So this is where we work. This is my desk. That's Harry's desk. I've got the big TV. And these are the other two games that we're working on, Goldilocks and the 3000 Bears, and another game called Cascade, which I'm going to be showing in a minute. We basically, when we moved into the office, we'd been playing around with these frogs. We wanted to know what environment to make. We just stared out the window, and it just seemed to make sense. But part of the fun of, I'll just turn this one on. Part of the fun of Amazing Frog is being able to play it, especially with the Ouya, the shared experience where you can sit in the living room and play on the same screen and sort of nudge each other. Oh, what should we do next? I think I'll go for that guy. I'll just play it from here. That's easier. Sorry. So you get what I'm saying. What was I saying about Amazing Frog? Oh, right, yeah. So, sorry, we do these, we put these different features in there for like two-player gaming. So we've got, easy. We've got different things like we have a crown in there that you can run along and pick up the crown, and then you use the other frog to sort of run into him, and I don't know what screen I'm looking at.
That's over.
And also a lot of have you got a gun? Okay. And a lot of the gameplay that evolves when you're playing it together evolves from whatever it is you actually want to do, and you don't have to have a set plan when you're playing a game. A lot of our influences are coming from those moments when you're playing Grand Theft Auto and you just can't be bothered to do the missions, and you end up just exploring and running around and doing nothing. And in our vision, we would make all of Swindon, so you could go around the entire. That's going to take time for two people, but you this Grand Theft Auto thing where you just like run around and just don't necessarily have to follow missions. That's where I got the most fun from. There's no real need for a finishing point to a game, especially with the kind of game that we're building. Or any real purpose. I mean, every little thing that we put in there, like these TVs that are pickupable, or they have a sort of purpose in our mind of what we're trying to do with them, but eventually we'll add things into them. Like the TVs are going to be part of a mission that we might put in there to collect different TVs, and whether we put that in or not in the next update will, I guess, depend on what people say to us about what they're seeing. We just picked up a TV and I threw it at the other guy's head. It was hilarious. Perhaps we could have a mode where something like that happens. Are you getting the crown? So, I think we'll show Cascade. Yeah. So, like, the way we work is that, we work on several games at once. That seem to be the best fit for how we work together. We generally adapt to what we're doing. We're looking at the code that we're making, and things evolve when you're making a game, not just from the feedback that you get from people that are playing it, but also from the dialogue that we have when we're working together or playing our own games. And so Cascade is working on the same thing. Now, Cascade is also a game that I'd been talking to a friend of mine who's a biochemist, who I've known since I was about 4, and we grew up playing Spectrum games together, games like Manic Miner, Jet Set Willy, forming our own little co-op on those kind of games. And as you grow up, he went off into biochemistry, I went off into art and making games. But all the way through that, there's been a kind of dialogue about, if we were to make a game about the science that he's working on, then would it, we would have, what's going on? Okay. We've never done this before. Part of the, so we'd always talked about making games out of science, and in this particular case, one drunken conversation, maybe about 6 years ago, we had a conversation about the research that he was doing into Alzheimer's, and it's based on something called the amyloid cascade hypothesis. And every time that Jodie would talk to me about this kind of stuff, it would just like fire off loads of images in my head about, and also the processes, because I'm so involved in programming, when these things were described to me, then it would make sense to build it. And again, when we went independent about 2 years ago, it was something that I'd maybe tried to get off the ground in the past, but had never been able to get any momentum to it. And then 2 years ago, we started looking at ways to get it going, and then of course, then Ouya happened in last year in 2012, and everything started to sort of gravitate towards in that direction. It seemed to fit with the kind of things we were working on. So what you're looking at here is a brain cell. So it's a depiction of a brain cell, and this is like one element of the research. So I'll just go through really quickly. What happens in this part of Alzheimer's is that there are these precursor proteins on the surface of brain cells which are like strands, and they get cut into 3 sections by these 3 proteins which are secreted from the brain cell. And that's just a very natural process. That's just how things are. But the way Alzheimer's comes in, when there's a mutation, if there's an imbalance between these 3 elements, for example, if the alpha element, alpha, beta, gamma, if the alpha element is lower, which here is depicted as green, then the strands won't be cut correctly, and the middle section of the strand will be left over and form these, they aggregate together and self-associate and turn into these amyloid plaques, which in turn then suffocate, and, well, suffocate's not the real word, but they basically destroy the brain cell, having a cascading effect onto all the other brain cells, and that's what wipes the memory out. So it's a pretty serious subject. But when we were building the game, we're not really thinking of like really forcing that kind of agenda onto people. We want to highlight various aspects like the research that Jodie's doing, which is finding ways to slow the onset of Alzheimer's, which is they introduce more synthetic alpha, and that's what the representations of these green ships are for. They're for introducing this synthetic alpha to the brain to help slow or halt and change the pace of the disease. And also, we're making a navigable landscape, so you can move from brain cell to brain cell in a kind of seemingly infinite world, which should just continue on forever. So the way the gameplay is going to evolve is that you can either decide to just run your way through the brain cell trying to escape this disease, but of course that's fairly negligent to what's going on around you, or you can stand in one position and build up a collection of brain cells that can be more balanced and can take on the mutation. So, there's underlying purpose to what we're doing. We are trying to raise awareness of Alzheimer's primarily. Like my best friend happens to be a biochemist. I happen to be a games developer. That's just how it works. We obviously want to do something decent with it, something good with this kind of game, and we're working towards it. And currently, being prepared to launch on Ouya is a perfect situation for us to build the game up and gather some momentum there. It's a great starting point to be honest, it's a great starting point for any small developer. I think Ouya is something which, definitely need to be, if you're a small developer, you definitely need to look into it properly. So we're aiming to raise awareness, and if we can make it gravitate and become a successful project, then we'll be aiming to put finance towards it, whether it's back into the research or whether it's into the charity. It's something that's pretty important to us. So that's Cascade. I think
Awesome.
I think I'm done, if that's cool.
That's it.
I don't know if anyone wants to ask me any questions, but that's cool.
Thank you very much for that. Well, we do have time for a couple of questions if anybody has any. If you do have any questions, just raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you as soon as possible. We have one. Where it's a race, who's going to win? You win.
Hi there. I was just wondering where you think, if you've come across any sort of limitations to what you can do with gameplay and things like that because of the technology in Ouya, and where you think, or when you think, you'll upgrade that technology, because Tegra 3 is getting a little bit long in the tooth now, and I can think of certain things that I would maybe want to do or would be interested in doing with Ouya that would be limited by Tegra 3.
Yeah, so I'll answer the second part first, and then you can answer what you
Okay.
can and can't do.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are limitations with Tegra 3. One thing that we've said about Ouya all along is that we'll have yearly upgrades. So sometime next year, we'll upgrade Ouya, which will include, a faster, more recent chipset. We're investigating those now and actually talking a lot with developers and engines, because having the fastest, most powerful chipset, if the tools that developers are using aren't optimized for them, or developers don't have them in their hands long enough, doesn't really make sense, because you're not going to get that great library of content day one. So it's an interesting conversation. There's a lot of great products out there. Obviously, we're really close with the NVIDIA family, but it'll be sometime next year.
I found it to be pretty powerful. I mean, I know it's only a Tegra 3. I've seen a Nexus perform, and it doesn't even compare to the Ouya, because this Ouya's got the fan on top of it. It's set there. It's got a full power supply. The way we build games is we try and make them work as best we can. Our background is building games on a 3G phone, like 3D games on a 3G iPhone, and this is still like loads more processing power that we've got. The more efficient we can make the games, the better. And if you wanted to go to other technologies, you're probably best off bearing that in mind. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people do crave power. They crave like their filters, or they crave like all these things. There's so much you can do with the Ouya, and it's $99.
I mean, to be honest, I wasn't thinking about graphics. I mean, graphics can do one.
Processing-wise,
as far as I'm concerned.
we've been doing
it's more
pretty
sort
well.
of what the stuff the stuff in terms of gameplay and things that the power might give you.
I'd say, from our point of view, since we got on board in January, it's only been empowering. So coming from a mobile background, and when I used to, I was saying to Harry, like when we started, we were working on Goldilocks at the time, and it was a run-around game, just shooting these bears, and that's coming out next year. And I was just getting so physical with the controller, and I wasn't, obviously I play other games with other people's controllers, you get physical, and like playing it like that, and it's like, I'm just not used to being physical with my own game, because I'd been being indie and small, I'd always been locked down to certain platforms. Now suddenly I'm on a TV, I'm holding a controller, and I'm playing my own game, and I know that I've got a chance to release it. I'm getting physical with it, and that was like a moment when I sort of realized this is really empowering for us, because it's just a game changer on how we think about the gameplay. So yeah, empowering, I'd say.
Cool.
Thank you very much. I have
you.
another question down the front here as well, please. Thanks.
So I work with OuyaForum.com on bringing weekly videos, news, and everything to everyone. And we've recently been getting one question from a lot of people, which is in terms of Ouya price-wise, tech-wise, and being appealing to a consumer as well as a developer, how will it compare with things like, for instance, Sony's newly announced PS Vita TV, which is a very cheap device, plays Vita games, PSP games, PS1 games. and things like that, which is around the same price point. It's how will Ouya and whatever next generations of Ouya continue to appeal to consumers alongside developers?
I think that's a great question. A couple ways. I mean, as it relates to gamers, Ouya is the only open platform, so it's a great start that the price point is coming down and the accessibility of games is getting broader, but at the end of the day, anybody can build a game for Ouya, and I think that's one thing that is still, core to what we believe in and really makes us different, that you don't have to be an established publisher or developer to bring your content to the television. Anybody can bring their content to the television. As it relates to price point, it's only one factor in someone's decision. I mean, we launched in June with more games than any other console. We have 450 games today. They're excellent and great, and I think people are going to find new games and new developers and new types of gameplay and sort of remember what it was like just to have fun and play a game that may or may not have, a beginning, middle, or end. So it always comes down to content, but we think by having an open platform, we win.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's all we've got time for, I'm afraid. So thank you all so much for coming, and thank you for your questions. In about half an hour here, we're going to see if Rami from Vlambeer has escaped from his hangover, and we'll make it to his developer session, so that's going to be exciting. But for now, I'd like to say thanks to you guys, Harry and Julie, so thank you very much.